Bob McCown, John Shannon, and we're back with you. Happy Monday to you. If you're listening to this or watching this on a Monday, which you may or may not be doing, we fully understand that. Some hockey talk today.
Yeah.
A couple of our pals. It's sort of a reunion, huh?
Kind of, yeah, kind of. They still like us, so. Well,
they meaning the guys we're having on?
Yeah, not the listeners. No,
or the company that we all used to work for.
I think they must like us now.
I don't think there's anybody left that knew us.
Oh no, there are a few. Trust me.
Which remind me to remind Scott Moore that he said that I was going to go up on that wall. Remember that, that wall of prominent Sportsnet people?
Weren't you on it?
No.
Oh.
No, I can't remember who was on it. I think Jerry Howarth got on it.
Oh, Scott loves to do halls of fame.
That's what he did.
Sports. He had a CBC Sports Hall of Fame too. And the moment he left, they cut it.
Well, remind me if we have him on again. I'll ask him whatever happened to that.
He's probably sitting at the pool in Palm Springs.
Well, has he moved to Palm Springs? Every time I see,
he's got a spot. He's got a spot there.
Yeah, but he's there all the time.
Well, why? If it's 80 Fahrenheit in Palm Springs, it's 2 Fahrenheit in Toronto. Where would you rather be?
Well, I know where I'd rather be.
Okay.
But I'd come back here occasionally. I don't even know the last time he set foot on Canadian soil. Anyway, Daren Millard with the Vegas Golden Knights. Nick Kypreos, who's back at Sportsnet.
On the radio.
The only one of the four of us who was fired and got rehired. In any event, hockey talk on this edition of the Bob McCown podcast. Something of a Sportsnet reunion here today.
Can we sing "We Are the World" or something?
Well, we can sing something, but I'm not sure that.
I'm Bruce Springsteen. If that's the case,
I'll be Brian Adams. Was he in that
one? Daren Millard in Vegas, Nick Kypreos in Toronto with us. Hockey on the agenda, obviously, today. Well, I'll start with Eichel since he scored probably the last goal last night and got it with a few ticks left on the clock. In general, how's the reaction to Eichel been in Vegas? I mean, he's played okay.
Yeah, he's been really good, and he had 5 points going into last night's game in 8 games. He's played with a bunch of different players because they've had more injuries since he's come back into the lineup. And physically, I'll start there. He was the first player to ever have that surgery, the artificial disc replacement surgery, in his neck, and come back and play. And he initiated contact right from the start, and the organization's been really impressed with how he's been able to not just handle the physical play, but really initiate it. So that part of it, and his hands and his shot have been very good for a player that's played with a bunch of different people. And last night they scored in the power play late on a vintage short side Jack Eichel shot.
And that's the pressure that comes with the trade of that magnitude and that salary, is that's what people expect. That's what you traded for. And there's going to be a lot of pressure on Jack. What was probably not even in a conversation a month and a half ago has turned into, hey, is there going to be some noise out of Edmonton, Vancouver, and Anaheim for a playoff spot? And if that's the case, could Vegas be the odd team out? We wouldn't have thought of that, Shanny, a month and a half ago, but stranger things can happen here.
Nick, I'm not sure we would have thought of it a month ago at all. And the free fall that Vegas has been on, and let's face it, it is a bit of a free fall. Also coincided with all those injuries that Daren was talking about. When you think no Stone, Pacioretty, I assume Pacioretty's coming back soon. Daren.
He played last night, and he took the shot that Jack Eichel converted on the rebound. So he missed 4 games, but he's been stopped and started all year.
Right. I apologize. I fell asleep after Lawless and Order. So,
well, and I mean, for clarity, for those people watching or listening, Calgary has I guess a comfortable lead in first place. LA's next. Vegas is a point behind them. Edmonton is 4 points behind Vegas, and Anaheim is 1 behind Edmonton. And I guess you can't count out Vancouver, who are only 1 point back of Anaheim. So it's a real logjam. So, I mean, it depends on whether you're positive or negative on the Golden Knights. You know, in theory, they're only a point out of second, but they may wind up being in a battle for their playoff lives. Millard.
Well, Jack said that he was giving himself 10 games to get back into rhythm after not playing for 11 months. Given what they went through in February, he may have to carry this team a lot more than even he expected or the organization wanted, and he's been up to form and looks like he's turning a corner. And this is a big week for him because they go on the road for 5 games, and one of those stops is in Buffalo for the first time. But their strength of schedule that they face in this final 25 games is very beneficial. One of the easiest in the National Hockey League. So looking at that and then the prospects of getting healthier, I personally am not concerned. I think they'll give Calgary a bit of a push. Calgary's pace. Yeah, well, just Calgary's pace, guys, is I'm not sure it's maintainable. It's that good. So I think it's going to be a pretty good battle for first place down the stretch. All the credit to them, but it's off the charts.
I just wonder, and maybe again, this is your territory, Daren. If in fact it turns into a bit of a race for Vegas, all along with Mark Stone, the bad back, managing it. Also, a guy like you said, Pacioretty, in, out, and then with Jack coming in, it seemed like they had this bit of a comfort zone that you could say, hey, Mark, go away and get it better, and then we'll see you in the first round of the playoffs. What happens if 2 weeks from the end of the year you're still in a fight, and you may need Mark Stone? Do you want to set the cap up that you can go back to him a little earlier if you need him, or is that a foregone conclusion that you just can't get him back in until after the regular season's over?
Well, the injury will determine whether he comes back, but I think that
the salary cap will determine whether or not he can come back.
Well, whether or not he's healthy is going to determine whether or not he can come back. And right now he's not healthy enough.
Could you fit him in? If he was healthy, could you fit him in?
Well, not right now. You can't right now.
You can't right now, but you've also got different players that are out of the lineup. Martinez has yet to come back. Nolan Patrick's not in the lineup. There's a lot of players that have been knocked out of the lineup. That who knows if you have to put somebody else on long-term injury, then you could do it. But right now, their first concern is trying to get Mark Stone back to where he can contribute in the long term and be at the level that he can.
Yeah, my point is though, if he is healthy, you have to set up your salary cap that you can be in a position to bring him back if he's healthy. Yeah. And I'm not sure their situation will allow that as of now.
Well, and that's what pushes. That's why you have to wonder still whether Kelly McCrimmon is going to be as active as any general manager on the trade deadline.
Not in terms of acquisition, because
but
they can't afford
clearing space, making sure that space is there.
I mean, there all along there was discussion that whether it was William Karlsson or Riley Smith, I mean, one of these guys was going to have to leave in order to try to fit Eichel and Stone and Pacioretty under the cap, in order for them to play at the same time. I mean, let's face it, we've all kind of, as hockey fans, we've all kind of drooled at seeing Eichel, Pacioretty, and Stone play as a line. Yeah. We may not see it this year in the regular season. We may not.
Yeah. Going into the game against the Anaheim Ducks, they had 7 players out of the lineup, and 5 of them were on the power play. So I think, everybody's fixated on Stone and whether or not he can come back, but they're just trying to put together a lineup that they can compete. Now they got closer with Pacioretty's return. Howden took warm up last night. He's been an integral part, but when it comes to the playoff, they think they're good enough, even with the injuries, to make the playoffs. That they believe that, and
they probably need Martinez. They probably need Martinez more than anybody else, though.
He is such, and people gloss over it because he's been out a while, but he makes such a difference on the defensive side, and the one-timer on the power play on the second unit is huge. An overlooked aspect of this team.
What's his issue, Daren?
He got a bad skate blade.
Yeah, he suffered the skate blade cut that was terrible, and so he's so lucky that it didn't hit his eye. But that's going back almost 4 months now.
Wow.
Well, and John, I think you mentioned Carlson as a possible trade guy, and
Hmm.
here's a foundation piece for this franchise. I would think that they would have some reluctance to move him, but may be forced to. Daren?
He's a big part of that second line and
Yeah.
one of the identity pieces of this team. And they've moved a couple of major pieces in the last year in Reeves and the goaltender Fleury. Yeah, it's one of those glue guys. You got to be. Nobody knows more than Kelly McCrimmon about glue guys and George McPhee. So that's one of those parts. And the misfit line, as they're called here, because they are the three originals. They've been good for the team. But Carlson also has to raise the level of his play.
Keep in mind too that you went and got Eichel because of your deficiencies at center ice.
Right.
So you don't get rid of Carlson. What you do is you get rid of, as John pointed out, a Riley Nash, a winger, Marcia So. That $5 million guy seems to be still the number one solution.
Problem is depth there and just depth scoring. And at a time when you're trying to make the playoffs, that line's your best line.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, like I'm so glad. One, I'm not qualified to be a general manager, and I'm learning more and more that I could never be a general manager. But it's hard to be a general manager and coach.
Oh,
yeah, it used to be common, right? And now it's all specialty stuff. The dilemma that every team faces, and Vegas will be a part of this, guys, is almost invariably any team that's looking to acquire at the deadline has their butts up against the cap. Don't have. I mean, how many teams have room to add $5 million in salary without dispensing somebody else? Very few. And that's why invariably when we get to trade deadline day, the day I hate worse than anything else in the entire world.
I always thought that you were really good at buying in.
Oh yeah,
like you're really good on those.
I wouldn't even buy in by wearing a suit when they invited me to do that.
It was Bob's classic team. I'm a team player day. That was what it was.
Yeah, but
you did everything but wear the middle finger on your T-shirt.
My team, not theirs. Well, and that's why you see, fourth liners for fourth liners, and fourth round picks for a third round pick. That's why you see that kind of stuff. And I'm not being critical. I'm being almost apologetic. It's hard to make a deal with a team that's in contention who want to acquire something, but are going to have to add $5 or $6 or $8 million to their payroll. Not many teams have that luxury, especially post-COVID, right, Nick?
Well, let's just point the finger at the Toronto Maple Leafs as the prime example, where Kyle Dubas today woke up and said, do I have an issue in net? I know I have an issue on the blue line. Do I have an issue on a top six winger for Tavares and Nylander? Like, that's a tall order for a team that's supposed to contend for the Stanley Cup going in a trade. And let's, on top of it, say that we have no wiggle room on a salary cap.
Right.
So, and you continue to listen, and maybe this is to your point, Bob, about this whole trade deadline and how it's overhyped and how you get the fan bases involved in the wish list of a TJ Miller or a Chikrin or Sherratt and the rest of them, and go, time out. There is the fantasy of that, and then there's the reality of that. Kyle Dubas is one of those guys that has to wake up and say, it's just not doable. And what that means is how far you want to go to move money in, money out, or give up more prospects and first and second rounders.
Yeah.
He may go for it, but he runs the risk of running this team really dry 4 years from now, 6 years from now, maybe even 8 years from now.
Nick, I would argue that he did this last year. That's exactly what he tried to do last year with the acquisitions he made. What did they actually push to Columbus to get Nick Foligno?
John, you know which one I have even a bigger problem on? You gave up a third round pick for a third goalie to sit in the stands.
Oh, David Riddick.
That one.
Riddick.
Yeah.
And I'm going, if you need Riddick, you're already out of the playoffs. You understand? Your first string goalie sucked. Your backup sucked. And if you get to Riddick,
You're
then
dead.
it's already over.
Mm-hmm.
What is the point of giving up a 3rd round pick?
But did he not already like set himself up to have to run this thing dry with his comments about it's win now and the pressure's on him? Like he feels like, to me, that he's backed himself into a corner to have to go for it and do anything he can.
But first of all, maybe the board and Brendan have given him license to do anything he wants in order to improve this team or get this team in better shape for the playoffs. But the other thing is if he says anything other than that, Daren, he's going to get skewered even more. I mean, he's damned if he does and damned if he doesn't. I think the message is we've got to go for it because we're the Toronto Maple Leafs and we know what we are. Is the only message he can give out right now. I mean, he's got so much money tied up with those guys, the 4 guys, 5 guys now if you add Riley. That I don't think he has any choice but to go for it.
Is Arizona getting more calls about Chychrun, or is Arizona getting more calls about taking on Cap?
The latter, I would think.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bob's right, because Chychrun has been out there for 2.5 months.
Yeah.
So everybody knows what they're dealing with. And there's only one reason why Chychrun's still in Arizona, not in another uniform, is because teams are saying, no, thank you on the ask. We're not going there. So does anything change in 2 weeks from now? Probably not. Do I expect Chychrun to still be there after the trade deadline? Yes. And I expect it to get revisited at the draft.
So who's getting more calls right now? Do you think Bill Armstrong in Arizona or Steve Yzerman in Detroit?
I think it's equal. I think anytime you got those bottom feeding teams that can take on salary to get to a floor like Arizona or Steve's in a different position because he thinks he can contend maybe in another 1.5 to 2 years.
Yeah. Well, and at least they've looked. The thing about Detroit and for their fan base is that, first of all, they've been fun to watch, and they have been more competitive. I think a lot of people than most people expected them to be this year.
Those teams may drive the price down a little bit. Buffalo and Ottawa, and just because teams that are shopping cap space around to see if teams can take it on may drive the price down a little bit on that.
That's always the case, Daren. That we see teams hold on, and Ben Sherratt's a perfect example. Another guy that would be in another uniform today if someone gave up the first rounder. That hasn't happened yet. So we'll see. But Montreal's going to get rid of him. The question is to your point, do they get the first rounder, or does the first rounder turn into a second and a third or a second and a fourth?
Well, and it raises the question of which is more valuable. And I think the answer to that question can only be answered by the team that's involved. For some, a second and a fourth is better than a first, don't you think?
Yeah. I think,
or let's say a second and a third has more value than a first.
What's sexier, though, for a general manager, John?
Well, a first.
Well, yeah, but the other thing is, and here's the speech that we've all heard at individual times with every general manager in the league. Well, listen, I'm giving up a first round pick, but it's only going to be 27th overall.
Well, that's the other thing. Yeah.
I'm not going to be in the top 15. I'm not going to be in the draft lottery. So if I'm in the mid-20s, I don't mind giving that up for something that will help me right now. Now, there's lots of teams that will try to do that and fall flat in their face between now and the end of April when the season ends. And then you wonder, was that really a good move? Did that make sense? I'm not sure.
That one really bites you on draft night when the announcers go, this is the 27th pick that was acquired for this player and that player, and you went out in the first round.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, but that goes to Bob's point, and on a bit of a broken record is how many big names can go into any organization and make that much of a difference. And history is on Bob's side. There aren't many situations where high-level players get traded at the deadline and make that much of a difference. They don't.
Well, it's been my point for a long period of time. Kypreos, looks like you don't agree, which
Well,
would,
no.
wouldn't be surprising.
I do. And I look at, I think one of the bigger names right now out there is Ben Sherratt. And there's been a big buildup on Ben Sherratt. And I like Ben Sherratt. But we're talking about him going, say, to the Toronto Maple Leafs and being a game changer. I'm not sure that's the case.
Well, I agree. And let me go back a few minutes. You know, we're talking about the Maple Leafs and what their needs are. And I think, Kipper, you were the one who mentioned, you know, they don't. Well, let's start with this. Want and need are two words that are used a lot, especially at this time of year. They are very different. They are very different words. Everybody wants something. Need is a completely different thing. You can make the argument that Toronto Maple Leafs have needed a quality defenseman all year. What has developed over the course of this year, and especially the last couple of months, is they need another winger for that second line. And
But
most
paramount.
Most dramatically, don't they need a goaltender?
Let's go to the beer league goaltender first on this one.
Are you passing? Hey, we have a really good beer league here. Really good beer league.
Obviously, that's because of the quality of the beer.
No. So that means you're playing defense? Is that right? Is that
Exactly? I like they're all in offensively. So I have no doubt that he works from the top down instead of the net out when it comes to that.
So
Well,
what does that mean?
that.
What do you mean? What do you mean by that?
I mean, the Toronto Maple Leafs try and solve their problem with the second line, and then the defenseman, and then
Try and outscore everybody. You know, 10-8.
I think they've made their bed with the goaltending.
How'd that work Saturday? They couldn't outscore the Vancouver Canucks.
Well, they're the only team. I will say this: they're the only team that I've ever said had to rebound from a 10-7 win in NHL history. So that sums it up, and they did.
But the goaltending Campbell has been horrible of late. And the backup is not much better. I don't think they want to go into the playoffs with him, which raises the question, are they among the teams that are calling Chicago?
I don't see it for
I don't
1
know how
second.
they can. I don't know how they can.
Well, economically.
Yeah.
You know what? Even not economically, I don't see Kyle Dubas backtracking.
No.
I see, first of all, they had one of the worst losses in history against the Montreal Canadiens last spring, and he doubles down on the roster. He doubled down on his horses, and he will double down on Mrazek and Campbell. He has no choice. He will not backtrack, and I think he thinks he'll look weak if he does it. Like, my plan A didn't work, and I think it will sink him. I think he has no choice but to go with Mrazek and Campbell.
Nick and I are saying it differently, but we're also saying the exact same thing.
Well, I'm pleased for both of you.
Well, no. How much is this compounded? And I'm not ever suggesting this because we knew Freddie was going out of town. We knew he was leaving. How much is this compounded with Fred Anderson being so good in Carolina?
Sure doesn't help Dubas.
No, but we knew that. I mean, and Nick, you're closer to the team than any of us. They were done with Freddie Anderson.
Yeah,
they were done. They were exasperated. I mean, they were frustrated when. They were frustrated with the day after they acquired David Riddick. All of a sudden, Freddie Anderson's back on the ice. Freddie Anderson's ready to take shots. And there are people around practice looking at him saying, what's he doing here? I mean, they had grown so tired of Freddie Anderson's act whether it was an act or not, but they were growing tired of it. And so that marriage there was going to be a divorce on free agent day.
Don't you remember the documentary when they were like, is he on the ice? I don't know. You want to look? No, I don't. You look. Is he wearing equipment? I don't know. How do you not know? How do you not know? If you guys don't know, who knows? But you're right. It was clear they wanted to go in a different direction. The moment they traded for Jack Campbell out of LA, they were grooming him for what we saw in the first half of the season, which Kyle looked like a genius, and now not so much. But we're still about 2 weeks away from an incredible performance by him against Pittsburgh at home, and they just gotta hope that they see more of that. There's just nothing that they can now do at the trade deadline that will take them off this path. And let me just say this, that I'm for sure I'm one of those guys that said, hey, listen, if Jack Campbell's going to be this Jack Campbell in the first 35 games where his numbers were historical, then he's in the ballpark of $5 or $6 million next year. But you got to finish out the year. You got to carry that. It's just not good enough to say, here are my numbers the first 35 games, and this is now where my marketplace is. As long as he was in that spot, you spoke legitimately about him being a $5 or $6 million goalie next year. Now we got Anderson in Carolina, and everything's pointing in the right direction. But if this guy loses in the first round and lays an egg, and all bets are off, and you're right where you were a year ago in what you were thinking maybe on both these guys, that they're not capable of carrying teams.
Our reaction to Anderson, I mean, when I say our, Toronto fans' reaction to Anderson, which doesn't include me, by the way, is not going to be determined until the playoffs come, because they've seen Anderson play well during a regular season repeatedly with the Toronto Maple Leafs, and then crap the bed when it comes to playoff time. That's always been, from a fan's perspective, the analysis of Anderson. So they're not worried about what he's done in Carolina. They're saying, okay, wait till he get to the playoffs and he'll be crappy, which is essentially what he was in Toronto. I think your point, Nick, interestingly enough, is it was at least in part because of that they decided to give up on Anderson, but it was more because of other things inside the room and personality and this, that, and the other thing. Sorry, John, I interrupted you with that.
No, I was just wondering, Nick. I mean, Jack turned down a contract offer early in the season. Any idea what it was?
Yeah, insulting.
Oh, is that bad, huh?
So
yeah.
What does that equate to in dollars?
Well, we're all from television in Canada. We're all from TV in Canada. Yeah. We all know what insulting means.
Yeah, Daren, I cannot give you a number, but you would be probably in the ballpark of thinking that they would have thought all along that they were dealing with Mrazek and Campbell as a 1 and a 1A.
So 3.5 for 3 years.
They wanted to see, the feeling was that, 40-40 split. If someone gets hot, maybe it goes to 50-30, but no one was really going to look at 55 or 60 games. And therefore, we're going to put you, as John said, in the $3.5-4 million range for maybe 3 years. Yeah. I mean, that's probably what he would have thought, that no, I've turned myself into the number one goalie here by December, and I want more than that.
Hey, listen, remember, in that first week in December, before the NHLers were not going to the Olympics, Jack Campbell's name was in the conversation to be one of the 3 goalies for the United States. He had worked himself into that position.
Well, he played great in the first half of the season. There's no doubt about it. He could have been considered a candidate for a Vezina, for God's sakes. And of late, he's looked like a sieve.
Can I want to ask you guys, is Jack Campbell happy it's an 82-game schedule instead of a 56-game schedule, or would he rather go on this body of work, this total body of work, over 56 games?
Well, let me ask you something. If the season would have ended on Saturday,
they'd be...
Who's starting?
Campbell.
Okay. So all he needs is just that one more opportunity to end this. So whether or not he needs another 30 games to get his game in shape, or you throw it on the wall and see if it sticks, he's eventually going to get that one more opportunity. And whether or not it would come in game one or in 30 more games, it is irrelevant. What happens now is when you get that opportunity, which we know is coming, it's not coming against, early this week against Columbus, but when it's coming, where does it go from there? It's just about your next stop, your next start and your next stop. So he's going to get it regardless of how long the season is, and he'll get another opportunity until he runs out of opportunities.
We talked about Vegas and who they might move, not necessarily for an acquisition, but just to get under the cap. Who's the most likely player for the Maple Leafs to move if they want to tweak? And I mean, like moving somebody who's, Spezza at 750 or whatever he's at.
Well, Spezza will retire.
I get
it.
That my point is, I'm not talking about a guy at the bottom of the food chain economically. Is there anybody in the $5+ million range that the Maple Leafs would contemplate moving? I don't think so.
Not right now, to your point, but if this thing ends ugly, then
everything's on the table.
Then it's Nylander or Marner. That would be your next conversation.
That's the summertime. That's the
summer decision. But again, going out there now and getting a goalie or trading Nylander right now would be an admission of guilt that your plan did not work. And Kyle's not going to do that.
Can I just throw out one acquisition idea just for the pure spectacle of it? I would like to see Toronto reacquire Phil Kessel, just for your winger idea, and just throw a little bit more gunpowder on there.
Why? Because they've stopped paying him, or what? What?
I would one up that. I would have Steve Simmons pick him up at the airport with hot dogs.
Thank you.
Or go pick him up in his car and drive him to Toronto. One or the other.
Oh, they wouldn't make Utah.
It's not going to be very expensive to go get Phil Kessel. I think the money that Phil Kessel would be owed in real cash, I don't even think it's much more than $150,000.
Yeah,
it's next to nothing. So somebody's going to look at him and say, Can I grab some third line magic like he had in Pitt? I think it's an easy pickup for a few teams that need scoring.
I need it to be Toronto, though. I need it to be Toronto.
Boston, John, maybe.
I've actually heard Boston, Nick. I've heard, is there a chance that he goes back to Boston? Because let's face it, I don't know what, I mean, I know I've been harsh on Taylor Hall his whole career, but the Taylor Hall experiment hasn't really worked as well as they thought it would, even though the team is playing so well. And who's leading it? A guy who wants to be traded. Yeah. Jake DeBrusk is playing really well right now, and he wants out.
Yeah, and he's an RFA. They've let RFAs walk recently, and without even qualifying them. I'm not sure that they're going to pay him what he wants to. I still think
they should revisit that one.
Yeah,
they should revisit on whether or not you'd qualify him. Mm-hmm. As you said, they walked away from Nick Ritchie, but Nick Ritchie has not performed in the playoffs. This guy actually rises in the playoffs. If you look at his numbers,
I love his game.
They're better than most young players at 24, 25. He's got a great history of showing up in the playoffs.
Oh, I tell you, I'm surprised, and whether it's the Bruins' cause, I'm surprised that he hasn't been moved by now. When you think that Tyler Toffoli got what I'd rather have Jake DeBrusk than Tyler Toffoli. I like DeBrusk's more physical game, and I think he shoots the puck almost as well as Toffoli. So, but the price might be too much.
Not to interrupt, but we got to take a break. We're a little late here. Daren Millard and Nick Kypreos are with us. We'll come back with more after this message. McCowan, Shannon, Daren Millard.
Welcome
Nick
back
Kypreos.
to Hockey Central at noon with guest Bob McCown.
Is this a trade deadline special? Are we on the air for
Well,
9 hours today?
Bob has been dying to have a trade deadline special. That's what Bob has always wanted. He said,
Well,
John, tell the
wearing the right
producer I
suit.
want a trade deadline special.
I'm overdressed for a trade deadline special. I got news for you. I have
How
to.
many of those were you part of? Two?
One.
Too many.
One
Two.
you dressed up as a biker, and the other one you dressed up as a
yeah.
cowboy.
Hey, he'd have to dig out the leather vest.
Yeah,
that
well,
would be the leather vest. You'd have to go find it. It's in a box somewhere.
Well, there was a standing order that everybody had to dress in a suit and this, that, and the other thing. The first year that they asked me to do some stuff, and I said, "Screw that." And I showed up in a black leather jacket and basically sat there the whole time with my arms folded and said, "This is all a pile of bullshit." And
But you couldn't say that on television.
No.
You can say it on your podcast.
I didn't say anything I want on my podcast.
No,
Anyway.
I thought I heard you say it.
I just did.
No.
Anyway, so somehow they invited me back the second year, but I think that was all a con because they kept saying to me, "Okay, Bob, you're on in 10 minutes." And then nothing would happen, but they couldn't get to me.
Breaking news. Breaking news.
It was nothing. It was Kypreos opining over some ridiculous fourth liner for a fifth liner. And they basically wiped me out of the second show. And at which point I don't know who it was, but I went to somebody and said, "I'm done. Thank you very much. But I'm not sitting around here for 5 or 6 hours. I'm not going on the air." Anyway, so that's the history of a trade.
Basically, Bob had a tantrum, is what he's saying.
Yeah. I remember
Little
a
one.
couple of things about trade deadlines, but my favorite memory will always be doing a hit and Kipper just walking behind us on the panel eating a sandwich. That sums up the day. Isn't Kipper supposed to be at the breaking news? There's no breaking news. He's just got the sandwich walking around.
I'll always take pride, and we were the first ones to bring the phones on, not
Yes.
TSN, us, and everybody followed.
The only good thing about trade deadline show was they fed you. Now, mind you, they didn't feed you with anything good, but there was food. I will.
You had to get there early enough to enjoy breakfast. That's
So sandwiches followed. Everything else followed after the phones.
I want to rewind the clock here, and I don't want to dwell on this too much, but I'm not buying the notion that Campbell is going to recover and can be what he was at the beginning of the year. I may be 100% wrong. I'll eat it if I need to. But and Nick, you also mentioned Nylander as the first guy to go if this ship sinks again. And I wouldn't disagree with you for a second. I never thought they should have given him the $7 million they gave him, or whatever the hell it was. Would you consider moving Nylander for Fleury? Because economically, that's a deal that would work.
No.
One guy's going to be in his prime for 5 years, and the other one may retire.
But it's Dubas, and Dubas doesn't have 5 years. Dubas has 5 weeks.
I'll agree with you.
So
in the sense that he's up against the time crunch.
So here's the bigger
100%.
Here's the bigger question. If you talk about moving Nylander and Marner in the summertime, Nick, who's the manager doing it? Because it's not. I don't think it is Kyle Dubas.
Well, if you're going to make that move, then the Leafs have lost early in the playoffs, and Kyle Dubas is out of a job, almost guaranteed.
Yeah, I don't get the sense that Kyle's under that type of pressure. And today, if the Leafs lost in the first round to, say, Tampa or Florida, and it went 6 or 7, and it wasn't as embarrassing as Montreal, I think Kyle stays. That's the general manager. I really believe that Brendan has his back. And I don't get this sense that MLSC feels a lot of pressure in making that change. I could be totally wrong on this, but that's the vibe that I have.
Well, let me say this I think I don't know whether you guys all agree. I like Kyle. Kyle's a nice guy. I got nothing against him.
Boy,
personally.
that is a hockey culture answer from Bob McCown.
Well,
he's a good guy, but
but there's a reality here. Like there are people I don't like, and I will say, get rid of him. He's a jerk. It's not Kyle Dubas, but it hasn't worked. His plan has failed repeatedly. And if this isn't the last chance, then
Yeah.
I don't know what the answer is. And it's
On
not
the
a personal thing. I think he's a nice
Yeah.
guy. I think he's pretty smart, but he rolled the dice, and to his credit or detriment, he has chosen not to rewind.
Again, I don't know what the temperature will be if and when that happens, that they lose in the first round. But
Well, hold on. Do you think they can beat either Tampa or Florida? Because that's who it looks like. That's who they're going to play.
I think they can beat Florida.
Do you think they will beat Florida? Is a more accurate question.
Yes, 10-7 every game. Have you seen Florida keep the puck out of the net lately? They
Hold it,
are.
I've watched them score 9.
Yeah, and we've watched the Leafs score 9 too. So I don't know what would be left of the Toronto Maple Leafs with the likes of Sam Bennett running you, but I do believe that they have a better chance of beating Florida than they do Tampa Bay. And then they've got the same issue. Don't trust Bobrovsky, and Spencer Knight's too young right now to handle it.
Mm-hmm. No,
Millard,
you're
you
right
agree
about
or
that.
disagree, Daren?
I think that there's as some concerns with the Florida goaltending in the playoffs and trying to advance the round. Bobrovsky's had 2 Vezina Trophy winning seasons and was great at the start of this year. But trying to advance and win you that game when it counts, there's real concern there.
I tell you what, I don't think the Maple Leafs are getting out of the first round if they're playing Tampa or Florida, either team. I don't think that do they have a chance? Everybody got a chance, but they are not beating either of those teams in the first round. They're not. Just
the Jack Campbell conversation. He was originally acquired to try and solidify the backup position. Remember, Michael had they didn't have anybody that could go in and win a game behind Freddie, and he was acquired to just solve that. And now he's your guy, and he's taken advantage of the opportunity, but. This wasn't the savior when he was acquired. He was just supposed to settle things down for a while.
See, I disagree. I think Kyle knew exactly what he was doing from his Sault Ste. Marie days, and he had Jack Campbell as his number 1 goalie within a year.
Wow.
So he traded Anderson more because of his confidence.
No,
in
they
Campbell
didn't
than-
resign. They didn't resign him.
Well, I mean, okay, so didn't resign him because he had confidence in Campbell more than whatever internal issues existed.
I just feel like by then the reputation of Anderson was well out there, that good regular season goalie could help you get in the playoffs, but can't handle it in first rounds, and that dates back to his days in Anaheim.
Yes.
So that just led. Not that there's not anything guaranteed, but if Jack plays himself into this, we'll give him the number 1 spot. That's our kind of plan B, a good plan B, a real possibility that Jack, if he plays well enough, can get that spot. And he did. And it worked out just as the way Kyle envisioned it when he first brought him in, as a backup to getting rid of Anderson, which we all know happened.
We painted Kyle Dubas with a brush that suggests he's either extremely self-confident or extremely stubborn.
I think the answer is both. Honestly, I think the answer is both.
Okay. I'll buy that.
Stubborn or just believes in his philosophy?
Well, that'd be confident.
Yeah.
But things take time. Stay the course. How long really in terms of being a fan of the Toronto Maple Leafs, it's been 55 years. In terms of being the manager, it's been 5. It takes time to build. They've tried to find ways. They've tried to tweak so many things. The Nick Ritchie experiment didn't work. But Bunting did, and Kasha did. There are things that are working and pointing in the right direction. Now their issue is, and Kyle talked about it in Hamilton the other day, the issues for him is on the blue line. That's they have to find a way, and the coach has no confidence in Travis Dermott, right, Nick? None. Doesn't like him at all.
I would think if there's one defenseman that he can move out, it would be Travis.
Yeah. So yeah, you're gonna give Travis Dermott, and you're gonna have to give something up big in order to try to find a way to fix your defense.
So can I just my thought process here on the conversation of how much trouble could Kyle's be in? How did you get rid of him or not? And my sense is right now, I don't get that vibe. I don't get that temperature going there right now. But maybe this might be a perfect type of segue into a conversation with you, Bobcat, and you, Shani, as well, is can you predict a different temperature if, in fact, they lose in the first round again? And I look at what's happened here coming out of this pandemic, MLSE, tickets. You know, it's starting to be an issue that we've never seen in the last 20 or 30 years, is that it's a harder ticket to sell for whatever reason. People are tired of the Toronto Maple Leafs in terms of what they're seeing and the constant failures. There's the fact that every dollar counts now coming out of pandemic, people losing their jobs. But I think, if I'm not mistaken, even Saturday night was not a sellout. I think they had 17,000 plus, which we know can go to 18.5, I think, on a sellout. They've got the outdoor game where I hear that it's not an easy sell either.
But that's not their gate anyway, Nick. Doesn't matter. That's not their gate. So.
No, but it's a reflection of
it's a reflection
Sure
of
it
the
is.
demand.
Sure it is.
Correct.
Whether or not it was their gate in Michigan or not,
Yeah.
you knew Toronto Maple Leaf fans were going to put 110,000 people in there.
Yeah.
So what my point is where is that temperature?
Well, and really, that's when you talk about no changes are being made. The only thing that saves a guy like Kyle and a guy like Brendan too. Don't think that Brendan's untouchable. Is that this is run like a corporation. If there was an individual owner, if there was a single guy, if there was a Bill Foley or a Daryl Cates or a Tom Dundon, and
A Harold Ballard.
Well, I was trying to avoid using that one. If there was an individual owner that read the tea leaves and said, "Oh my God, my fan base is so pissed off at my management team, I got to get rid of them." That's not how this board works. This board works where we have to have a study. We're going to have a committee meeting, and we're going to wait a month and a half. And you know, it's a different climate and culture with the MLSE board, and it has been since Harold and Steve Stavros. Then you wonder, does Kyle stay at all then? And to me, I think that's a big part of what allows Kyle and Brendan to stay.
In conclusion, I would say at the beginning of the year, it was quietly determined that he would get one more chance.
Mm-hmm.
He could run this, keep running this play till you get it right. Well, you got one more chance to run this play. If the Maple Leafs go out in the first round, and there's a very good chance that could happen, I don't think anybody on this panel has confidence that they can survive the first round.
Oh, Nick has them beaten Florida in 4.
I know he does, but if he doesn't get past the first round, 95% he's gone. Because they could have made this decision. We probably had this exact conversation, or could have, at this exact time last year. And once again, the Maple Leafs fell on their sword. And not only that, they fell on their sword, as you said, Nick, with one of the most embarrassing first round defeats maybe in the history of the franchise.
Bob, they looked better last year than they do this year. They looked better because of who they had to play in the playoffs.
Yeah. Well, they looked like they looked like they were going to be better, and they got up 3-1 and then folded up like a cheap suit. So I don't think he's got any more. I don't think he's got any more cards to play.
We started this podcast episode by you guys voicing concern for Vegas. After listening to the Toronto situation, I'm even more confident than I was earlier about the Golden Knights.
Well, I'll tell you what, Robin Leonard better stay healthy.
Yeah, he was good last night.
Yeah, he was. For the first 2 periods, because I fell asleep after Lawless in Order.
After Lawless in Order.
Yeah, that's right. My favorite segment. It's my favorite segment.
If he doesn't stay healthy, maybe Vegas goes and reacquires Fleury. I'm just trying to get Fleury somewhere.
Yeah.
And out of Chicago. Nick, I know you want to say something, but you have to wait. We got to go.
He's got a 3-hour show he can
Yeah,
say.
that's right.
Yeah,
Come
you
on.
got lots of time to talk. Boys, we love having you on. You know that.
Thanks.
And we appreciate your time as always. And hopefully we'll get a chance to do it again, maybe even before the playoffs start.
We'll
Thanks,
meet
boys.
at
Awesome.
we'll meet at the Tim Hortons on the second floor. Let's go.
Trade deadline
100%.
day.
We've done that before. Daren Millard, Nick Kypreos. We'll come back and wrap it up after these messages. Our thanks to Daren Millard and Nick Kypreos for joining us. Not short of opinions on anything.
No. Hey, you concerned about your basketball team?
Cavaliers? No, not really.
I thought you might have said that you mean the Cincinnati Royals, because that's closer to Columbus. So,
The Utah Jazz? No. Yes, I am.
yeah, so am I.
Well, I've been concerned all year. I've never really bought into the theory that they win 8 in a row.
Yeah.
I thought that was a mirage. I never had a level of confidence.
And to see the Mobley Barnes comparison last night was fascinating. I mean, and Mobley was Barnes was good too, but they were both good. 2 good rookies.
Yeah, but that's sort of an apples and oranges comparison, I think.
Why?
Well, because of the position they play and the kinds of players they are.
Well, there's only 5 guys on the court at once.
Well, I get that, John, but they're not exactly the same kind of player.
Well, who would you rather have?
Oh, I don't know. I think it's too early to tell. To be honest.
Oh, you're on the fence. You're on the
Well,
fence.
no, I
that
don't
should have been us. I'll take Scotty Barnes any day of the week.
No, well, I don't have that confidence in him.
Oh,
Well, but you propose that I'm some kind of crazed Raptor fan, which is not the case. I mean, I'm a bit of a fan, but I got no issue with.
I
Barnes.
saw you in the parade. I saw you there waving
was
your
not
banner.
in the parade. I was working during the parade. I'll have you know.
Or are you directing traffic?
No, we're doing the show on location, just down the street from where the parade was. What a disaster that was too. In any event, there's no danger of a parade this year for the Toronto Raptors. And now you've used up all our time. We got to go.
Well, Bob Ryan tomorrow. Talk basketball.
Basketball?
Yeah, tomorrow, Bob Ryan.
All right. Well, of the Boston Globe. We look forward to that. Hope the audience does too. Thanks for listening or watching, as the case may be. We'll see you tomorrow. Goodbye.